Okay, well, my name is Ray Goodsir. I'm originally from Australia. I came to the Netherlands via 6 years in Paris, where I was working as basically a technical IBM software programmer type guy. After a couple of years in the Netherlands, we became database experts, and we started DC, Database Consultants Europe. We changed from being a technical consultancy to a management consultancy, and we ended up with having 250 people and offices in Singapore, England, Belgium, and even one in Los Angeles, which never earned us anything. But
how did you get this transfer from technical consultancy to management consultancy? Why?
What happened was going back over 25 years in the 1980s. It was when database technology came of age. And the actual sales line that everyone like IBM and Oracle and products, Database and IDMS were the products, the salesman was saying, buy this product and all your data sharing problems are over. Because what they'd done, they'd provided a structure in which you could have a single definition, say, for example, of a customer or a student or a product, and you could attach all relevant data to it, which seems highly logical. But the problem behind it, the analysis problem, was that every different department had to agree on what the common definition was going to be. So you got the origin of the term silo thinking. Everyone was working in their own silo, like I'm in marketing, or I'm in production, or I'm in sales, and I'm going to keep my own definitions, thank you very much. So the management problem was that management had to realize that this was blocking the effective use of their data. That there's a statement that data is your most valuable asset, and so we switched from being the technical people implementing the thing, trying to explain to people that it wasn't going to work unless you did
coordinate with each other.
Yeah, so we actually introduced information analysis and then information planning into the Netherlands in the 1980s. We were relatively small and got taken over by the bigger companies at the time with names like Volmac and things like that, and they made a more commercial product. But we transited from being technicians to advising management because it was a natural lead into information planning. You should align your IT strategy with your corporate strategy. Then came in all the questions, well, what is your corporate strategy? And the in-word came to be mission. Now nobody really knew what a mission was, but you had now it's been supplanted by vision and business model. But anyway, I went on and in the 1990s became focused on things like, I was managing a BV at the same time, about 40 people. In the 1990s, I started focusing on what I thought the new services, and I was on business process re-engineering, and then change management, and the company then went through some major problem times in the early 2000s. I left in 2009, and am now running my own company, just in training and consultancy. And I'm living in Amsterdam with my Dutch wife and two daughters, aged 14 and 12 at this time.
All right, so that's a very, very good introduction.
Okay, a bit long, but
no, it's good. I mean, it's nice to have a good picture. One side note, one question that I just popped up into my head: was it difficult after having a technical background for people in the management areas to take your word for your advice? Did they see you as a technical person, and thus you were in that silo, or how did that?
It was not really, provided we didn't threaten their areas. So while they at that stage, there was quite a lot more faith in technical people than there is now, because a lot of people realised that if they put too much faith in technicians, they run into problems. But they did believe that the databases and associated technology were very valuable, and they saw us simply as people who could talk to them. We were technicians who could talk their language, and we made a point of talking about what was the return on investment, how much money you put in, how much money you lose. So we talked in financial terms, and we could also talk to them. We avoided anything to do with the computer. We might talk about things like the most technical we would get was, is this a one-to-many or many-to-many relationship? So one salesman can deal with multiple clients, I presume. Can a client, for example, deal with multiple salesmen? So we talk about, they might say, for example, yes, but one salesman is nominated as the account manager. So they were happy to talk about those things, and then what you raise a very interesting point, because we were a consultancy in the middle between, if you like, the McKinseys and the Bain, who have the reputation for being strategy consultants, and the systems integration houses, things like companies like Accenture, Capgemini, and others. Of course, everyone argues, as I'm sure Capgemini would argue, yes, but we do all the strategic and the intermediate work as well, and vice versa. But we would say, quite often people would say to us, well, fine, you do the analysis, but what about when it comes to implementation? And we'd say, well, we don't have 15 or 20 people to put on it, but we will follow the project through. We'll project manage the project to implementation, which we often did with teams from Accenture or Capgemini or companies like that. But the point you made is, I think, about will they believe technicians. It's very difficult for any consultancy, not necessarily the consultant, but a consultancy to move up. So, for example, if you take a systems integration house and they want to be known as strategic advisors, that's a much bigger leap to make than we were. If you like, our slogan was we implement your strategy implementation, which has become quite a buzzword now. So we said, well, it's not our job to determine your strategy. Just you are the people who know what you want, but we are here to help you implement it. Of course, in many cases, the strategy wasn't clear. So in order to work it out, we would have to know how to conduct strategy workshops. But we found it hard to sell ourselves as strategy consultants. So it's very hard once you start on a certain level to work your way up. To get out of the box, yeah. You get labelled as a consultancy at this level. And there's an awful lot to say about that. Is, can you get out of it? Do you have the skills? The suspicion is that if you're a systems integration house, you want to get rid of the high-level stuff quickly and put in a team of 20 or 30 programmers, which is where you make your money. That's what people are suspicious of. So it's hard to... But as an individual person, I think it just very much depends on the person.
Would you say that in general, with all new technology emerging, etc., this sort of communication between higher levels, the different silos, are people learning to communicate with each other, or is the problem getting worse?
That's again a very good question. I think the problem is definitely still there. I think technology plays an incredibly important part. As a matter of fact, I think almost every new consultancy issue, or if you want to be polite, or fad if you want to be impolite, has a technological base. So, for instance, the use of the word business model as opposed to mission. The mission statement was basically what do we sell and who do we sell it to, and you might add ethics to that. Okay, why business model? Well, because of the internet. You had three factors. In a business model, the three factors are who are the customers, what are we selling to them, and how do we get it to them? How do we deliver our services, which is directly came about because all of a sudden with the coming of the internet, there was more than one way to deliver your service. So I think the technological change made for a big business change. Now, what I see happening is a very nasty thing happening, but hopefully technology might create the problem, might deliver the solution. Because technology's got so powerful, people have, and especially with the financial crisis, people have fired people like crazy. So they reduce their staffs because you can do a lot more with technology. But instead of having more leisure time, as people thought we'd do, everyone is now working like crazy. And it's become a very unrewarding job to do, to be a manager, because you're simply measured on hardcore results. You don't have a lot of time. You're not given a lot of what leeway, I guess, is the word. You know, if you fail, you don't deliver quarterly results or 6 months, then you're out. So there's a lot of emphasis on delivery and short-term results, particularly in America. A bit less so in Europe, but sort of even so. So there's a lot of the traditional problem of who pays for any form of integration remains. If you take, for example, a large insurance company that I happen to know of, they wish to provide instant services to their customers. They would like to track what they're doing online to be able to sort of build up a profile. To do that requires a huge integration of data, and if you want to do that, it's still the case that there are still silos of people who say, well, I'm quite happy to have a common definition, provided the other person changes their definition. I don't see why I should pay for it. So it's I think the silo problem still exists. It particularly comes across when you try to implement ERP systems. Again, you've got to standardize processes. So anyway, the salvation though might be what you said with the modern communication tools. In order to use them, if people are enthusiastic about them, they will go to some measure of standardization.
Okay. On a different note, starting for yourself, being an entrepreneur, what are, in your opinion, the biggest payoffs and the biggest downsides to not having a boss above you?
I think the biggest payoff, apart from the potential of earning quite a lot of money, if you, depending on what you do, by that I mean if you start, for example, by yourself as a consultant, as a lot of my colleagues did, and you go out by yourself with a client who's paying you 800, 900, 1,000 euro a day, there's considerable upside. You instantly are earning, 20,000 euro a month, whereas before you might have been earning 3,000 or 4,000 euro a month. You have to pay costs, insurance, medical, everything from that, but even so, you're an awful lot better off. The danger there is you don't have enough time to build up a business, look around for other clients, so one client ends, and all of a sudden you haven't got any other contacts and you're out of work for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. If you're starting a business where you basically have very little capital and you have the idea and you're looking for financial backing, etc., I think the thrill is that I see most people working for is that simply the thrill of being independent and working together. I think that is stronger than what I think the buzzword is passion at the moment. In other words, I think particularly in your 20s, one should look around for lots of interest to experiment with a lot of things and see what one of them will turn into a passion. I think it's fair enough. Some people have a passion. They want to make bicycles, or they want to make boats, or they want to be a sportsman. Very many people don't. All they know is they just find it very exciting to create something. And I think that's the upside. The downside is that people underestimate is all the boring stuff that goes with it. For instance, if you want to sell your product, someone's got to ring people up, find out they're not there, talk to the secretary, find when they're going to be coming back, make sure they know when to ring them up again, take all the depression of the rejections and things like that. Think about how we're going to organise conferences to market it. Are we going to put articles in magazines? And somebody's also got to negotiate, as you mentioned, with if you're going to outsource the production with China or India or the old Eastern Europe, and somebody's got to do an awful lot of footwork. If you want to build up a company, someone's got to think about a really boring stuff like career plans. It's great for the first 3 of you, have fun. What happens if you want to bring in a genius? One thing we've mentioned before: how do you allocate the shareholdings? Do you have any shares over to give valuable people? So I remember when we started our company, one of the guys spent a whole year working on the pension plan, and then was told he wouldn't get a bonus because he didn't bring any revenue. He said, yeah, but you asked me to work on the pension plan. So I think the upside is the thrill, the downside is the boring work. Maybe it's simple as that.
For someone who is, say, in their 20s, passion, they have something, what is a place to start? how do you begin? The knowledge, the field, the people. Where do you start?
To find a passion.
Both to find the passion, and once you have your passion, how do you?
Okay, well, very, very many people say to me that they don't like to say it, but it comes out indirectly after a few drinks that they actually don't have a passion and feel quite guilty about it. The assumption is that everybody else has a passion and they're the only ones who don't.
Yeah.
You can go through, as you know, we homeschool our children. One of the reasons we do that is we believe that the high schools kill creativity, as witness Sir Ken Robinson's on how schools kill creativity. On the other hand, there are many people who go through school and turn out pretty normal for whatever reason and turn out quite creative. But you're certainly not encouraged to find a passion and follow that through. You're encouraged to buckle down, son, or daughter, and study this and think about nice things when you get your basic qualifications. Then you can have fun, but basically, shut up and work hard. I think one way to go about finding stuff is, first of all, to simply say what you don't like, what you don't do. And for instance, in my case, there's no way I would have been a doctor or anything like that. My choice was basically engineering or law. I definitely didn't want to be a doctor. I can't stand blood. There's no way I'd want to spend my time doing that. I don't want to spend time locked in deep in an office as an actuary or something like that. So when I knew I wanted a job I got a job as a consultant. I was always in service industries. I wanted to move around. I wanted exciting work. Eventually, the thing I made my reputation on happened to be information analysis and information planning, and that came out of the years I spent programming, seeing the messes that people made, particularly seeing the messes that people made when they tried to maintain systems. And when there was a conversion from one new generation to another, the amount of money people wasted by throwing away all the original work because nobody bothered to document it, nobody knew how to document it. I kept thinking there must be a better way, there must be a better way. And for me, I like communicating with people, I like technical things. I got extremely passionate about that subject, and indeed that was probably the success that made me a BV manager, was probably the enthusiasm I pumped for that into the team. So I'd recommend to people that you experiment with quite a few different things, starting with what you don't like. If you don't know what it is, then either start your own company, see what happens, or go and work for a bigger company and see what happens. But work in an area that's at least in something you like. For instance, if you're interested in creativity, work for one of the television stations. You're interested in making things, work for an engineering company. Work with people that you think you'd like and see what comes from that.
Yeah. And so, say you found your passion, very happy once you have those 3 drinks, you don't have to be depressed anymore. Me, for example, I had no idea how to start a business, how to do this, and I of course have my own answers, but how would you suggest someone who doesn't know anything except for that they have a passion would start gathering the knowledge, the people, to actually start up something?
Well, are you talking about someone who is studying at the university, or as you assume?
For example, yes.
Assume someone who's a student. Well, I think there's maybe 2 answers. One is to what people are doing here in the entrepreneurial school, to associate with other entrepreneurs. That's if you can find a community of people who are interested in this and you can share ideas, that's one thing. So get with like-minded people. Talk about it. Tell people you're interested in it, and if you can get connections in business, or go and talk to people who started their companies, so you'd like to interview them and want to know how they did it. Maybe even do a thesis on something like that. The other aspect you might be getting at is if you're saying, okay, I want to start my own business, and you don't have a particular product or area in mind. If you happen to be someone, for example, who really likes music, maybe what you want to look for is opportunities for making and selling guitars or something. If you don't have that area, then the classic thing to do would be to look around what is needed in the marketplace, or what's something that you think would just that you and your friends would buy, something that's so exciting you'd buy it, and then the classic mistake that people make is not to look at the customers, not to look at the market, not to ask them. I was again in an insurance company the other day with a young 21-year-old stagiaire, and he was listening to the older people talking about what youth want in insurance, and he came up to me and said, they're talking about what youth want, but they've got no idea. They don't go and ask them. So if you want to know, and then you have to go, or you have to observe what people are doing. The classic things of looking at people on their smartphones all the time. What is it? What is it that they're occupied with? That what really turns them on? Is it brand names? Like my daughters want certain headsets from some rapper guy who's sort of
Dr. Dre.
Yeah, sort of because of he's got the name, that sort of thing. But how can you? So I look at the marketplace.
Yeah.
Realistically, not on, because a lot of people look at some obscure product that might be valuable. But if it doesn't excite people, it's not going to.
It's not going to.
Yeah, unless it's a niche market, where there's in like the one in, I think your friend in medical supplies, unless there's a niche market that they know about. But once again, that market that this friend of yours was aimed at a certain medical problem he knew about through working in the industry, I think.
Yeah.
Is that
talking
okay?
about that's very good. Speaking of niches industries, taking at some levels up society.
Yes.
How does entrepreneurship, if you look at the political landscape, the attitudes in recent years, how does entrepreneurship fit in? Some people are very much seeing that as the salvation of the economy, especially the Americans seem to be very fond of that.
Yes.
Other people will go very Occupy Wall Street and say, no, that's absolutely not the answer. What is your opinion on the position of entrepreneurship in our current society?
Two aspects. You mentioned two things which, if you had asked me, am I for the people occupying Wall Street, I'd say yes. I think it's absolutely disgusting that 1% of the people in society own 99% of the wealth. I think there are clearly structural problems there that have been well known for a long time. Whether or not, and is that the fault of a capitalistic system? Probably, I think it is. It's an awfully big subject, but I think it is the fault of the way of capitalism, the way we currently implement it. That doesn't mean that I know of an alternative model. I do know through watching videos like YouTubers on YouTube, such as Money is Debt, which several videos of that. That at the end of the system we've got at the moment will be that the rich get rich and the poor get poorer, because you are rewarded for hoarding money. Once you've got someone once said to me, you're crazy not to be conservative in your socialistic in your 20s and conservative in your 30s, because it's only when you get to your 30s you've got something to conserve. Then you've got some money, then you've got a house, then you become conservative. I've got something, I want to conserve it, which is great, but it means that more and more of the capital gets blocked and there's less and less to go around. So there is one Swiss or Austrian economist whose name I don't know, I think it's a woman, who's written an alternative system, basically any system which would allow for more, which might not, for instance, reward you for hoarding money. But that is beyond my level of expertise. I think there should be another economic system. What I can see, where I do see entrepreneurship as the hope for the future, is what I see particularly in young people now, is the desire to do something that's socially beneficial. People talk about social entrepreneurship, which is a huge thing, and of course it can get twisted. It can be, governments doing things with private industry can be seen as governments shifting off their responsibility. On the other hand, someone explained to me, an Oxford professor explained recently at a conference I was at, that in fact there are certain things that governments can't do because they're not popular, such as allocating tremendous funds to perhaps a handicapped section of society where there simply aren't that many handicapped people, but there's a big enough population to be worried about, but they have no political vote, they have no political power, then they were arguing, or this professor was arguing, that there it's a very good idea to combine, to encourage private government, private ownership, government cooperation. So what I believe is that, number one, there's not as many conventional jobs going round. People simply don't want to work for the same old companies for two reasons. They know there's no longer any loyalty compact agreement. So, it's not jobs for life. So why should I be loyal to you if I know you can fire me the next day? So I'm no longer looking for lifetime employment. As I think I might have said to you socially once, I was rather shocked in the 90s when 24, 25, 26-year-old students are coming in, and when you say, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? They would say, well, I'd like to work for your company for 2 or 3 years, and I think I'd like to get a job in line management, and then I think maybe I'd like to go and start my own business. And you'd sort of think, well, that's nice, why the hell can't you lie at least? Because nobody would ever have said that in the 80s. They would have said, I see my future in your company for eternity, even if they didn't believe it. But so there's one reason is the jobs for life has broken down. Secondly, the financial crisis. A lot of the conventional jobs no longer exist. So it's a matter of finding what does society need. So I think that's critical. That combined with a social conscience, I think, is a tremendous thing, and that's one of the things I'm most enthusiastic about, encouraging that.
Okay, looking back at Global Entrepreneurship 2011.
Yes.
St. Janskerk. What stood out to you in that conference day?
Well, people such as yourself and Berend Dam and the guys who invented the Senzo umbrellas, and the number of young people who started businesses on the web, with little more than a bit of technical knowledge and an awful lot of enthusiasm, but who were able to see niches in the market and exploit them. That excited me very much, because particularly since I'm looking at my two daughters, thinking what are they going to do, what they're interested in. I'm thinking, if you setting up websites, and my wife is doing something in the medical area with a website which has taken off. She's now got so many hundreds or thousands of followers on Facebook and etc., etc. So from someone who was practically technically illiterate, she's built up a huge community there that's not particularly financially profitable. It's not profitable at all at the moment, but it's big. It's getting there. But the response. So to see that was possible really gave me a thrill. I just wrote something that the guy who taught me acting, taught me theatre, said that once you can't learn from young people, you're dead. So as a wise old man, I was shocked by what I learned on that day, and simply the energy of people such as yourself and the other group there was terrific to be around and to get inspired by. What I've later learned is probably more familiar with than me, that it's an awful lot of effort. It's not the case that you just set up a website and people come flocking to it. It's, I think one of the guys had a bit of a nervous breakdown at Overspannen in Netherlands because the pressure of, I think that was to do with getting things made in China and looking after
umbrellas, this one, right?
Looking after the what's the rights, the patent rights and all that sort of thing, and
copyright, right to copy in China.
Copywriting and then just the simple matter of the tremendous amount of administrative work. And one particular trap, I think, is the underestimation of the effort it will take to write new software, because anyone with a technical background always sees how they can do it, and they always underestimate the amount of time it will take to write it, always. and they never even think about the amount of time it'll take to maintain it or what that could possibly entail if they have a large customer base. So there's an awful lot of traps along the way, but I think that was the energy that I saw there and the success that I saw was impressed me a lot. As did, interesting, from I think Anne-Marie van Gaal, who was talking about her establishing her publishing house in Moscow, and I think Rob Kirschbaum from DSM, talking about very interestingly about how he had to shepherd an entrepreneurial creation for the strongest wire in the world through DSM, which he did, but also said yes, it wasn't easy. So, but I think that was a thrilling day. Yeah.
So, last question. Finally. Looking at Maastricht, the university is relatively young.
Yeah.
And it's an area in motion, especially since the closing of the mines, etc. That the government is in very many ways trying to stimulate this region. If you walk through the city, have contact with the people you do with, do you feel this as an entrepreneurial place?
The answer is a qualified yes. Qualified by the fact that I don't know anyone much outside the student population in Maastricht. So the people I see who were students seem to be extremely entrepreneurial. So they're perhaps because I've been mainly associated with the business school, and there you're looking at people who are consciously thinking, I'm taking these studies because I want to focus on a certain area in life, as opposed, for example, to people who maybe in the other faculties, I don't know, who are studying law because they don't really know what they want to do, but being a lawyer will be good enough, or a doctor. So the people I've certainly met in the business area, in the entrepreneurial area, tremendous energy, tremendous buzz. What opportunities there are here to exploit that, I don't know, but there are opportunities in the Netherlands, definitely. I would think one answer might be particularly focusing on paying attention to the alumni community. You know, because I'm living up in Amsterdam, I've got quite a few friends, ex-students from Maastricht who are now living in Amsterdam or in Utrecht. We're getting together pretty regularly, once every 2 or 3 months. That means, and not all together, but on various events, some of which I'm hosting, and I think there's that could be a very dynamic lifeline back, because I think people you do study with or you go to university with, there's an understanding and a trust. How that could develop into more opportunities for this area, what would make this a more an absolute hub for entrepreneurship? I don't know. Maybe then probably I'm a bit out of my depth. Could you turn this into a Silicon Valley type place? It might take a bit of astute combination, a bit of clever combination with politicians to see what sort of companies could be established around here. I'm afraid I don't know if that is happening.
Well, politicians, I don't think anyone really knows what's happening.
No, absolutely.
So lastly, is there any message or final thoughts that you'd like to share?
I think probably a little bit what going back to what I was talking about, the 3DS startup, about passion, in the sense that I think it's, and why you want to be an entrepreneur. I think it's a thrilling thing to do, to start your own group. Whether or not you fail or succeed, I think the experience is invaluable. Also the experience of learning about money very quickly, learning about people very, very quickly, and perhaps most of all learning about yourself. What sort of person are you? Some people, for instance, having find that they actually have to sell and they've really never done it before, love it. Some people hate it and will never ever do it again. But the thing I mentioned in the 3DS start about exactly where is your passion, you need at least 3 or 4 skills in an entrepreneurial startup. You need the entrepreneur who's got the idea. which by definition is you or one of your colleagues. Then you need the person who is the expert. That maybe you as the programmer, or maybe someone else as maybe the people outsourced to China. You need someone who likes managing and organising, and you need someone who can handle finances and talk to the banks. And of course, they're all skills, which you would expect that the original entrepreneur would have one or more of. Not only the idea, but either be the expert or really like selling or really like managing. But I think if you're going to start, I think an honest assessment fairly soon after you start of what you're skilled at and who you should pair yourself with, who you should combine with, is critical if you want to be a success. But I certainly think it's worth trying, and I regret that this atmosphere wasn't around when I was younger, both good and bad. When I was younger, jobs were plentiful. You just graduated and you got a job, so nobody had to worry about earning money, and which was a blessing in one way, but a bit of a curse. It didn't teach me to think entrepreneurially when I was younger, because we didn't get to start our company till I was in my late 30s.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Ray.
My pleasure. Okay.
And we hereby conclude.